Hello, and a warm welcome to today's event about the Supply Chain Act and its relevance for social justice and the achievement of the SDGs. My name is Katharina Hausfelder, and I'm today here with my fellow Muna Plus colleague, Nikola Romic.
Hello and welcome.
And we are also joined by our guest. We are really happy to welcome you here, Lutz. You're economist and dean at the Fresenius University of Applied Sciences. Maybe you would like to say a few words about yourself. I would hand over to you now.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here today. So I'm highly interested in the topic of sustainability. Nevertheless, my focus is less on the supply chain side, but I'm more dealing with strategy and business development in that field, because I strongly feel we talk too much about risks. We don't talk enough about opportunities.
Good to have you here, and really interesting topics. And this already brings us to our agenda for today. So we can hop over to the next slide and we'll have a quick look what's up for today. First of all, just to have a common ground and to start from the same base, we would like to tell you a bit just in general about the Supply Chain Act and how it's related to the SDGs. Afterwards, and this has been recorded already 2 weeks ago, we will see an interview with some of my fellow colleagues as well from Muna Plus, with Mrs Esken, who's the party leader of the SPD. And last but not least, and most importantly, we will have a critical reflection on that interview and in general on the relevance of the Supply Chain Act with Lutz together then. With all of this being said, I'm happy to hand over to our chairwoman at Muna Plus for a few introducing words. Happy to have you here, Vanessa, today.
Thank you, Katharina, for this great introduction, and a very warm welcome from my side as well to all of you on behalf of the whole Muna Plus board, of course. I'm sitting here in Vienna, and I'm very happy to join this setting virtually. It's a real pleasure, and I remember back when we did this 2 weeks ago with Mrs Esken, which was already a lot of fun for everyone involved. And I really like this virtual setup, enabling us to come all together from different places where we are, and it's also a lot of fun to see you in the studio. And a big thank you for everyone who made this possible. A big thank you and a warm welcome to you, Lutz, as well from our side. And we're very happy to have you. We're very happy to have the chance to do this elaboration on the Supply Chain Act, and we think this is a very important part to do this now, following the interview. And with that being said, I wish you a lot of fun. I wish you a lot of success, and hopefully you will learn a lot of things about the Supply Chain Act, and you'll be inspired by our event. And so I hand back to the studio and to Katharina now.
Thank you, Vanessa. Yeah, we're happy to be here today, and we are even more happy to directly dive in, I'd say. So let's jump to the next slide and just see what's up there. So, in general, the Supply Chain Act was necessary, and you can see why when you have a look at the figures on the left side of the slide. So, although technology is evolving, it's still really difficult to trace back where materials come from, and even more difficult to know under which circumstances they were extracted and produced in the first place. Therefore, the German government found that there's a need to protect the people who are at the beginning of the supply chain, because we must not forget them as well. Therefore, the Supply Chain Act has a few objectives. One of them is to have the obligations defined. The obligations that each and every company right now, at least the bigger ones, have to obey. And this includes an annual reporting as well. There's also a control authority that has been established, and it's introduced now to impose sanctions if it is detected that companies are not paying attention to the Supply Chain Act. Last but not least, of course, and that's the most important goal, workers should be protected.
Okay, jetzt geht's weiter.
All right, it seems we have been gone for a few seconds, so please apologize for that. I'm just going to repeat my last sentence. So last but not least, of course, the Supply Chain Act aims to protect the rights of the workers who extract minerals, for example, or sew our clothes, or just provide the coffee we all need in the morning. So they are now allowed, or they have the possibility to file complaints that are then addressed here in Germany. And this already brings us to the next slide and the SDGs that the new Supply Chain Act is now relevant for. First of all, and of course more SDGs than just the 3 of them that you see on the slide right now, are affected by the new law, but first of all and most important of all is SDG 8. So this one is about economic growth, and it's about decent work. And of course, when we talk about fair labor conditions, we are talking about decent work. This also includes equal pay, and it includes as well the elimination of forced labor, of child labor, also of modern slavery. So all of this still isn't a thing of the past, and I think this again stresses why the new Supply Chain Act was necessary. Although, of course, and this we will discuss later on, the act has some limitations for sure. The second SDG that is important in this context is the one of sustainable consumption and the production patterns. This SDG is actually more about the environment, but still, of course, we all also live in an environment. And if our environment is destroyed, for example, by toxic chemicals, that makes it way more difficult to live a proper and a decent life there. So it's also about conserving the living area of local workers. Last but not least, and this will especially become relevant when the Supply Chain Act might at one time be also a European law, is partnership for the goals. So this means that countries and organizations are working together to really improve the living conditions of people worldwide. And we all can contribute to that because different countries bring in different knowledge, and it's worth exchanging that. So with all of that input, we can now directly hop over to the interview that has been recorded previously about 2 weeks ago with Mrs Esken. We were really happy to have her here in that same studio virtually as well. And we will now have a look what she has to say about it.
Parteivorsitzende der SPD, heute thematisch zum Lieferkettengesetz. Von mehreren Seiten gibt es bereits Kritik am Lieferkettengesetz. Wie bewerten Sie gerade auch den aktuellen Beschluss hinsichtlich der Wirkung auf die Leute an erster Stelle sozusagen der Wertschöpfungskette?
Also ich finde es zunächst mal wichtig, dass wir überhaupt so weit gekommen sind, dass wir jetzt in den Schlussverhandlungen zu einem Lieferkettengesetz sind. Wie immer, wenn man einen Kompromiss schließt, noch dazu mit einem konservativen Koalitionspartner, dann gibt es natürlich Kritik von mehreren Seiten. Den einen geht es zu weit. Sie sind der Auffassung, man brauche sowas überhaupt nicht. Es geht doch schließlich verantwortungsvolle Unternehmerinnen und Unternehmer, die würden schon selber schauen. Und auf der anderen Seite gibt es natürlich die NGOs, die auch schon lange ja trommeln für ein Lieferkettengesetz, für mehr Verantwortung der Unternehmerinnen und Unternehmer in Deutschland und Europa für die Einhaltung von Menschenrechten und über die gesamte Lieferkette. Und wenn man dann so einen Kompromiss schließt, dann kommt natürlich Kritik. Ich bin froh, dass wir so weit gekommen sind, dass wir einen ersten Schritt machen können, mit einem Lieferkettengesetz jetzt auch tatsächlich die Unternehmen in Deutschland zu binden.
Vielen Dank für Ihre Antwort. Mich würde aber interessieren, dieser erste Schritt, was geht denn über diesen ersten Schritt hinaus? Wie kann das Lieferkettengesetz wirklich den Leuten an erster Stelle helfen?
Also jetzt im Moment geht es, wie gesagt, darum, mit diesem Gesetz erstmalig auch Unternehmen tatsächlich zu verpflichten. Dann sind die Klagemöglichkeiten, die Reaktionsmöglichkeiten in den Fällen, wo eben keine Verantwortung übernommen wird, wo es eben Hinweise gibt für Menschenrechtsverletzungen in der Lieferkette, gegeben. Und vor allem glauben wir aber, dass mit dem Gesetz auch ein Wechsel, eine Veränderung des Mindsets auch sowohl der Verbraucherinnen und Verbraucher als auch der Unternehmen eben bewerkstelligt werden kann.
Dankeschön.
Wenn wir uns mal anschauen, dass das Lieferkettengesetz ja nur in Deutschland ansässige Unternehmen umfasst, stellt sich da nicht die Frage, ob es da eines europäischen Ansatzes bedarf, wenn man mal jetzt als Stichwort Steueroptimierung nimmt?
Na klar sind europäische oder auch anders multinationale Ansätze immer wirksamer als allein ein nationales Vorgehen. Und dennoch haben wir jetzt so lange darüber debattiert und verhandelt, dass wir jetzt diesen ersten Schritt machen. Wir haben ja in vielen anderen Zusammenhängen auch in Deutschland Gesetze vorangebracht, die dann am Ende in der europäischen Gesetzgebung gemündet sind. Ich denke an den Datenschutz oder an andere Beispiele, auch bei der IT-Sicherheit. Das erste IT-Sicherheitsgesetz floss dann ein in die Verhandlungen der NIS-Richtlinie. Da ist man Hand in Hand sozusagen vorangegangen. Und so kann es natürlich hier an der Stelle auch sein, dass wir dann am Ende zu einer europäischen Haltung auch kommen. Das wäre natürlich wirksamer, ganz klar, auch wegen der Ausweichmöglichkeiten, die man jetzt hat.
Ja, das heißt, da ist schon was in Planung hinsichtlich einer europäischen Lösung, oder ist das bisher nur eine nette Idee sozusagen, die nett wäre, wenn sowas zustande kommen würde?
Ich weiß, dass auch andere auf europäischer Ebene, natürlich auch andere Nationalstaaten, andere Mitgliedstaaten über diese Thematik nachdenken. Auch da gibt es NGOs, die drängen, und es gibt natürlich auch Politiker, die in der Richtung nachdenken. Insofern wird es der nächste Schritt sein, dass man sich auf europäischer Ebene in dieser und auch in anderen Fragen übrigens immer weiter auch annähert und gemeinsam agiert, gerade in Fragen des internationalen Handels, der Handelsabkommen, kommt es ja darauf an, dass man auch gemeinsam agiert.
Genau, Sie sprachen ja gerade schon das Drängen der NGOs ein wenig an, und mich würde einfach interessieren, wenn man jetzt mal Nachhaltigkeit gesamtheitlich betrachtet, wo auch dann eben Menschenrechte natürlich mit einbezogen werden sollten, Klima, aber eben auch noch gesundes Wachstum, letztendlich die Agenda 2030 der Vereinten Nationen, und das jetzt gegen das Lieferkettengesetz oder den aktuellen Entwurf zumindest gegenhält, ja. Wie glauben Sie, dass das besser verbunden werden kann, sodass wirklich auch so ein gesamtheitlicher Ansatz von Nachhaltigkeit auch im globalen Handel einbezogen werden kann?
Ich glaube, dass der Gedanke der SDGs sehr wohl ins Lieferkettengesetz eingeflossen ist. Vielleicht nicht in der Konsequenz und in der Breite, wie man sich das gewünscht hätte, aber dass der Gesamtansatz, der breite Ansatz auch der Nachhaltigkeit, den Sie angesprochen haben, dort an der Stelle wirksam ist. Natürlich geht es nicht nur um den Schutz des Klimas, sondern es geht vor allem auch um den Schutz auch der sozialen Rechte, der Menschenrechte, des Wachstums auch in den Ländern global, die eben im Nachteil sind. dass dieses Wachstum eben auch nicht auf Ausbeutung ausgerichtet ist, sondern auf gesellschaftliche Teilhabe, auf soziale Gerechtigkeit. Das spielt eine ganz entscheidende Rolle und deswegen ist es auch so wichtig, dass wir als Konsumenten in Deutschland und in Europa insgesamt im Norden dieser Erdkugel Verantwortung übernehmen und das auch tatsächlich aber nicht nur als persönliche Entscheidung möglich wird, sondern dass es eben auch als klare, auch gesetzliche Regelung eingehalten wird.
Wenn man jetzt auf das, was Sie gesagt haben, sich bezieht und dann überlegt, wie die Vorlage aussah und wie der Beschluss am Ende des Tages dann durchgegangen ist, also dass man diese Diskrepanz der Lieferkette, dass nicht die gesamte Lieferkette mit drin ist das dann nicht, hätte das nicht mit eingeschlossen werden müssen?
Wir hätten uns vieles konsequenter vorstellen können in diesem Lieferkettengesetz. Das ist aber nun mal die Krux einer Koalition, insbesondere einer Koalition mit konservativen Koalitionspartnern, die ja grundsätzlich dem Thema eher zurückhaltend gegenüberstehen, was die Verpflichtung von Unternehmen anbelangt und wo immer dann auch harte Gegenwehr kommt. Natürlich haben auch CDU und CSU-Vertreter, die dort auf die Rechte der Menschen überall in der Welt schauen, wie beispielsweise der Entwicklungshilfeminister. Aber tatsächlich ist es schon so, dass wir es da mit einer harten Verteidigung auch des Gedankens der Selbstverpflichtung zu tun haben und dass wir am Ende bei einem Kompromiss rausgekommen sind, der, wie ich finde, als erster Schritt durchaus tragbar ist und da einen Fuß auch in der Tür zu haben, die Dinge auch weiterentwickeln zu können, ist mir besonders wichtig.
Ja, Sie hatten jetzt gerade ja auch an der Frage zuvor so ein wenig die Notwendigkeit auch genannt der Bürger, der Zivilgesellschaft. Wir bei Muna Plus versuchen bei unseren Interviews, Events auch immer so ein bisschen herauszubekommen, was letztendlich wir auch als Gesellschaft oder eben als NGO machen können, um vielleicht auch jetzt heute thematisch dem Lieferkettengesetz etwas näher zu kommen. Das kann vielleicht auch in unserem Alltag sein, aber eben auch gerade im Job. Wir sind alle gerade im Einstieg der Karriere. Was können Sie vielleicht den Muna Plus Membern mitgeben, wie wir was dazu beitragen können?
Ja, man soll die Macht auch der öffentlichen Meinung und der kleinen öffentlichen Meinung sozusagen nicht unterschätzen. Ich stelle mir vor, Gespräche, auch Personalentwicklungsgespräche oder Einstellungsgespräche, wo man solche Fragen stellen kann, ohne jetzt da allzu dringend sein zu müssen, dass überhaupt die Frage gestellt wird und dass das Gespräch auch, das Thema auch regelmäßig im Fokus ist, bringt, glaube ich, insgesamt, kann sehr wohl auch die Sache voranbringen. Wir haben gesehen, wie jetzt die Proteste der jungen Generation, der Fridays for Future Aktivisten auf den Straßen auch gewirkt haben. Tatsächlich glaube ich, dass sowohl die sehr drei heißen und trockenen Sommer, die wir jetzt hinter uns haben, in der öffentlichen Wahrnehmung, in der Wahrnehmung dessen, was Wissenschaftler schon vor 20 Jahren darlegen konnten, doch wesentlich was verändert haben, aber eben auch der Druck der Straße in Anführungsstrichen, eben die vielen jungen Menschen, die deutlich gemacht haben, ihr spielt hier mit unserer Zukunft. Und ich glaube, dass das auch weiterhin auch in anderen Zusammenhängen, nicht nur in Bezug auf den Klimawandel, auf den Klimaschutz, durchaus wirksam sein kann.
Frau Esken, als abschließende Frage, sieht man da Deutschland in der Vorreiterrolle in Bezug auf meine Frage von eben im europäischen Ansatz, dass das Lieferkettengesetz quasi ein Umdenken fokussiert?
Ja, ich glaube, ich will nicht sagen, dass andere Mitgliedstaaten und Parteien und Politiker in anderen Mitgliedstaaten da nicht längst auch am drüber nachdenken sind und auch in eigener Programmatik sich dort mit dem Thema beschäftigen. Deswegen diese Vorreiterrolle, das ist immer so ein bisschen, hat immer so einen Geruch des Besserwissens. Das ist, glaube ich, nicht der richtige Weg, sondern wir sind natürlich sowohl als Parteien als auch als Regierungen in den jeweiligen Gremien auch aufgerufen, die Themen weiterzutreiben und dort für Verantwortung der Europäischen Union und insgesamt der starken, wirtschaftlich starken Industrienationen zu sorgen und das Thema auf der Agenda zu halten und da auch weiterzukommen.
Ja, vielen Dank von unserer Seite, Frau Esken. Wir bedanken uns für
Sehr,
das
sehr
nette
gern.
Interview. Auf Wiedersehen,
Vielen Dank.
machen Sie es gut.
Alles Gute. Tschüss.
Tschüss.
Danke.
Vielen Dank.
Super, Saskia.
So, after having seen the interview with Saskia Esken, we are now happy to know what Lutz will say about it. What is your impression, Lutz?
So I'm just wondering, we always look at Germany and we have this Germany-centered view, and I think there are so many initiatives around. So there are so many initiatives concerning the Sustainable Development Goals, concerning ESG investment, so economic, social, and governance-related investment. And I think so we are not alone, definitely not. And so this is a more multilateral thing that is happening all over. And I think the German law here is the German supply chain law is a very good step. Nevertheless, we are not alone. I know there are similar initiatives, for example, in France. But also with a different focus than we have. And at the end, there will be some kind of compromise.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is actually a good introduction because we wanted to ask you what you think about the signaling effect that our German Supply Chain Act might or might not have for Europe, but maybe as well for the whole world. Do you see that signaling effect, and is it just limited to human rights? Or could it maybe also include at least some kind of a positive tendency also for environmental aspects?
Yes, I think the focus is definitely on the human rights. Nevertheless, also environmental protection is a human right. And so when we look at the supply chain law, we see that besides human rights, we have children's rights and we have environmental protection. And but this is not really new. I think back in 2014, we had the non-financial reporting directive of the EU. And this directive already requires non-financial reporting concerning environmental protection, human rights, anti-corruption, bribery, the boards. And it also gave us at least a set of tools concerning the reporting concerning due diligence here. And so I think this is only a step in a wider set of initiatives all around. Yeah.
Lutz, with this being said, and you call the law a step, how do you assess the relevance of the law, and do you think that the companies will actually restructure the supply chains and that there will be an improvement for the people currently affected by human rights violations?
Yes. Okay. So first of all, when we look at the law, this goes back to the pillars of the human rights, of the Declaration of the Human Rights: dignity, liberty, equality, and brotherhood, or even French Revolution. Yeah, and these are principles of the Enlightenment. We know since the 17th century now. Yeah, for example, John Locke was talking about life, liberty, health, indolency of the body, and the possession of outward things. Yeah, and this is basically what we see here. But my question is, why did it take 300 years to make it happen? And but honestly speaking, I doubt that the big companies who are addressed now have bigger problems. Yeah, for example, most companies I know, at least German companies, they use, for example, certified materials, for example, when they buy gold or other minerals and metals, they have already certified materials. They have certain procedures in place. They have non-financial reporting procedures in place. So the big companies are already dealing with these issues, and for them it's not a huge hurdle. No, definitely not.
Thanks for your answer, Lutz. You mentioned an interesting point that bigger companies might have already something in place and that they are using certain materials and that they are certified and that they have established processes to make sure that human rights are adhered to. But still, there was a proposal by the United Nations and the OECD, so the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, and they basically left it open for governments which parts of of that whole topic they would like to leave open. So just have a voluntary commitment of companies, and which parts they would like to include in a law. And initially, Germany decided to just go with that voluntary approach, but obviously it didn't work. So do you think that in the end, German companies, at least the bigger ones, kind of missed out on a massive corporate social responsibility opportunity to kind of market that they're already doing something good and that they're doing better than other companies? What do you think?
Okay, first of all, when we look at the institutional processes, of course, the recommendations by the United Nations have to be some kind of work, because they have to address the whole world, so to say. And when we go down on a European level, then, or on a cross-national level, then it's getting more strict, more precise, yeah. And when we go down to a national level, then we have national laws at the end of the day. So we have to be aware of that. Then, and when there is this kind of top-down movement, it's starting somewhere on the top in the UN, yeah. And then to say. Going down to the on the national level, this leads to more precise rules. Nevertheless, this takes also some time because it has to be coordinated and so on. Yeah, and I think you speak about the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. Yeah, these were guiding principles, definitely. Yeah, and the idea was that the state has the duty to protect the human rights. Yeah, it's still the a duty of the state, and it's also the company's responsibility to respect the human rights. And of course, then we have to find some solution how to deal with victims of business-related abuses. So these were basically the three pillars of this process. And I think we have a blueprint, actually. This is the Kimberley process from May 2000, and this is about this kind of as I said, a blueprint. It's about blood diamonds, conflict diamonds, and now we are talking also about peace diamonds, so positive diamonds. So diamonds can be bad, they can be very bad, but also they can somehow foster development and even social development in some areas. And so it's not black and white. There are many scales of gray in between, and we have somehow to develop a model here, and this takes definitely some time here. Yeah.
Lutz, before I continue with my questions, we got a pretty interesting comment there. The problem is less with any kind of supply chains related laws, but with control. And then there is a recommendation to check what's happening in China. So, and this comment indicates for me that it's more about control than actual laws. And it's also a point, I mean, in the research that I've done before on this topic, this is also a main point or main critics on the supply chain law, on the supply chain act here in Germany, What is your opinion? Is it more about control? Is there a lack of control? Is it too easy for what we also discussed previously in the interview with Mrs Esken, that there is a lack of control, that companies, even though that there is this new law, they can easily avoid implementing the law?
Okay, we have to, of course, talk about the national level, and we have to talk about the companies on the different national levels. I think in Europe or in Germany, the companies are very aware of these issues, and they see risks for the brand, for example. Yeah, when you are a big brand in Germany, and you won't take these risks, definitely not. Yeah, or you would at least avoid them. Yeah, and of course there are several levels of control. For example, I know that in Germany there's a big company dealing with gold, among other materials, and they, for example, have a kind of fingerprint, and they can see if this is gold from conflict areas. So they do a lot to get only certified material here. And I think this is really important that these controls are in place. They are not many companies do it, but when I'm talking about the big German companies, then I'm quite sure that they are doing a lot to make sure that they are somehow safe and that they don't have, for example, risks for the brand, as I said.
Okay, a little bit off topic, but still interesting. A 2020 study conducted by Ernst & Young indicated that almost 70% of all Germans would pay more for products if they were more sustainable. At the other hand, or let me rephrase this, how can this be reconciled with the fact that cheap meat, fast fashion, as examples, are still not a thing of the past? Are consumers to be called hypocrites?
I wouldn't like to talk about hypocrites here or about hypocrisy. We have to. I think we have two things we have to take into account. First, we have the social realities, and of course, cheap meat, fast fashion are related to less wealthy groups in our society, and for some people, it's almost the only luxury they can afford. Yeah, and of course, these people will tend to buy these things, if they have a limited budget. And second, I would say this is a psychological issue. So I'm thinking about Kahneman's 2011 book, Thinking Fast and Slow, and he's talking about the system one thinking and system one decisions and system two decisions, and the system one decisions are fast, instinctive, emotional. Yeah. So, and this is exactly what marketing is striving for. They want us as a consumer to consume as no-brainer, so to say. Yeah. And that's I think the worst problem we have here. Yeah. And so long we are pushed in that direction, then it's still a problem.
What is the call in there? What is the approach? Is it about regulation? Is it the government's duty?
First of all, I think regulation is a really important topic. So we had a project about climate adaptation strategy, and we developed a framework which we called ESER framework. So economic, social, ecological, and regulation. So regulation is a key topic, and so it's like the first step is always that politics tries to have some kind of self-commitment, that the industry commits to a certain behavior. And if this doesn't work, of course, then we need some kind of legal action here. Then we have laws at the end of the day. And I think that's the way it goes, and that's the way how it must go. So if some things get beyond the limits, then we have to, then the policymaker has to take action. Sure.
Here I would like to jump in. So you were talking about regulation. Regulation, of course, always has the kind of bitter side taste. It means that we have to pay more as consumers, that maybe some things are completely prohibited. So how can we rephrase that? How can we maybe rethink even sustainability as a whole and connotate it in a better, in a more positive way? How can we, I don't know, like maybe attach adjectives like creative or innovative to sustainability? Do you have an idea there?
So long we have the feeling everything is forbidden, then it won't work, for sure. And so we have to reframe the whole topic. That's what we're doing in our master's program, because we are just saying, okay, we cannot frame climate change and the losses you probably have in your private life as so negative, and we have to find out the positive aspects here. And I think this is really, really important to find a new narrative here. And I think that this will definitely be the way to go. Nevertheless, I'm also an economist, and I think so externalities have to have a price, and a real price. So it cannot be that products that have a negative impact are so cheap that so everybody has to pay for it, everybody else. And for example, there was a study by the University of Kassel, and they said, okay, every citizen in Kassel pays 128 euro for automotive mobility, from the little baby 2 days old until the 100-year man or woman in somewhere in the hospital or whatever. And and these costs are not covered by taxes. And then we have to rethink. So this is a basic principle that hardly everything should or you should the price for what you do. When you order a beer, you have to pay the price for it. Very simple. The whole price. And on the other hand, of course, there's a social impact there. And of course, we have probably to find ways. For example, it cannot be like people that are not so wealthy cannot have access to mobility. Okay, that's out of discussion here. And there we have to find solutions. Definitely, yes. And tax, the German word for tax is Steuer, which means tiering. And I'm a strong believer that taxes tier. And these are the instruments, or the most powerful instruments we have, and we should use it carefully, but in an effective way.
I agree. And you already mentioned social realities, and that there are different ones and that they can vary. So my next question is related to exactly those differences. You also mentioned one example. It cannot be that less wealthy people are not able to have an own car anymore. So how fast can this...
No, they don't. They need access to a car. That's a difference.
Thanks for clarifying. Yeah, you're right.
Access to a car or to mobility whenever you need it.
That is right. But it still brings me or leads me to my next question, which is about those differences. Because we see them between rural areas and urban areas. We see them in regards to income, of course. So how fast can this sustainable transformation be, and when do we risk to really lose like whole parts of the society because we are just proceeding too fast and we do not provide any alternative measure or alternative options for them?
Okay, I think this is also an issue of awareness, of communication, of the narrative, actually. And of course, we have most of the sustainability issues in the cities. Yeah? A growing city needs more resources, is more expensive to live, and so on and so on. So most of the social and environmental cities are somehow related to the size of the city. Yeah? And therefore, we have to find different measures in the city than on the countryside, for sure. And I think when you live in the countryside and you're not commuting every day 500 kilometers or whatever, yeah, then of course you may live far more sustainable than in a city. Yeah? And we have to be aware of that. And cities are colleague Bettencourt is his name. He called them reactors. Yeah, there's something that is always producing energy. Yeah, and these energies that are produced in the city have side effects, and that's a problem. Yeah.
Now for our last question, I would like to zoom a little bit out again. So are we betting on the wrong horse? On the one hand, we are taking this miracle of endless economic growth as given. But isn't it a little bit contradictory to aim? Isn't it for sustainability and for human rights and all what is included in the new Supply Chain Act? So shouldn't we rethink our economic models? Isn't this an option?
Yes. So on one hand, we see that the global wealth is rising on an overall level. But we have to look at the different countries, and there we see a growing gap. This is one thing that is really important. And we see that we have exported, or that we are currently exporting, our Western mid-20th century lifestyle to the middle classes all over the world. And this is a huge topic when we talk about sustainability, yeah, because the farmer in India, he has not a sustainability issue normally. So it's the way we are living, so housing, mobility, and traveling, flying, whatever. Yeah, and there are the problems actually we have, and we are living on a limited planet, and there cannot be something like endless growth. That's simply impossible. And our resources are limited. Our deposits for waste are limited. So we have at least to reduce material growth. We have to reduce this parasitical growth. And we have to try to avoid of the negative side effects of growth. And I'm talking about qualitative growth. So how can we still grow as a society without destroying the planet? And this will be the challenge. Yeah, and the growing middle class is the probably the worst challenge we have on a global scale, actually. And when we talk about this huge potential for middle classes in Asia, in Africa, and so on, yeah, but we are their role models, to be honest. Yeah, and on the other hand, we see also that we have some kind of post-growth situations already in many markets. So we are distributing wealth within a society. Yeah, so in a society, some may get poorer, others may get richer. This is one aspect, but we are foremost redistributing wealth between the generations. We steal the wealth from future generations. Yeah, and that is scaring me a lot, actually.
How can we? I mean, I know it's a little bit it's a hard question, but how can we grow sustainable? How is it possible to gain economic growth but still be sustainable and look in the future?
And maybe to add to that, how is it possible to integrate that in regulation then?
Yes. Of course, material growth has to have a price that is, so to say, covering the externalities. And this would reduce the material growth. And of course, we have several aspects that we can take into consideration. For example, we are currently having a project on urban production. Yeah, so produce the things that you need where you need. And of course, it's hard to bring this in line with our current economic models. Yeah, but our current economic models, we have these models for 30 years, 40 years, depends on how you look at them. And this is not a law of nature. Yeah, it's something that can be so or so, which might be different at the end of the day. Yeah, and what we always say is that the way we are doing business, the way we are acting is highly related to culture. Yeah, and I think there are some cultural aspects that will change. Yeah, not that they are necessarily changed from outside, but we have some factors, some limiting factors that will, of course, also limit our opportunities. Yeah, so we cannot consume like we did before. Yeah, maybe a qualitative growth could be that we focus more on longevity. Yeah, for example, a healthy, good, long life. Yeah, and maybe people will in future pay less for a car than for a good and healthy life. Yeah, and so we see these changes already. Yeah, and I think this is, for example, something where we could see a qualitative growth here. Yeah.
So to sum this up, the whole conversation, the key points are a change in our lifestyle, regulation, and maybe innovation. Shouldn't there be also a call for innovation, and that we have a good mixture between all these three elements?
Yes, of course, innovation is key. So we have open Pandora's box, so we cannot live without innovation. Yeah, for sure, that's not possible. And on the other hand, we have developed tools in marketing that have been extremely successful. So, for example, when I was a young man after my school, I started working for an advertising agency, and we did marketing for cigarettes, and it worked well, to be honest. Yeah, and if we could use these tools for the good, yeah, I think this would be something that really we could all benefit from it. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any further questions?
I don't have any more, but if you in the audience still have one, please feel free to use the chat functionality or the comment functionality. And otherwise, I think we're happy to stay in contact with you, right?
Yes. Thank you very much, Lutz. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again for having me. And so I wish you all the best, a lot of success, and take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.